What happens when the man you've planned to marry for 4 years looks you in the eye and tells you you're not successful enough to be his wife? Most women would be devastated. But honey, when he discovered what I'd been hiding all along, his whole world came crashing down. Some secrets are worth more than gold, and mine made his betrayal look like child's play. Trust me, you'll want to hear every single detail of how this story ends. My name is Ashley Morgan, and let me tell you about the day I discovered that sometimes the worst thing that happens to you turns out to be the best thing that ever could have happened. 4 years ago, I thought I had found my person. His name was Ryan Carter, and he seemed like everything I had been looking for in a partner. Successful marketing executive, charming personality, ambitious goals, and a smile that could light up any room he walked into. We met at a coffee shop near the elementary school where I taught 3rd grade. I was grading papers on a Saturday morning when he struck up a conversation about the book I was reading. 4 years later, we were engaged, living together, and planning what I thought would be our perfect wedding. Ryan used to talk about our future constantly, how we'd move to a bigger house in the suburbs, have kids, build this amazing life together. "You're gonna be such a beautiful bride, Ash," he'd say, while we looked at wedding venues online. "I can't wait to call you Mrs. Carter." I believed every word that came out of his mouth because I was completely, utterly in love with this man. But looking back now, there were signs I chose to ignore because love makes you blind sometimes. Ryan had started making little comments about my career that felt like tiny paper cuts. "Teaching is noble, babe, but it's not exactly a high-earning profession." Or, "When we have kids, it'll be nice that your job is so flexible." The way he said flexible always made it sound like he meant unimportant. He'd introduce me to his colleagues as Ashley, she's a teacher. And somehow, the way he said it made my profession sound like a hobby rather than a calling. When his friends talked about their wives' careers, the lawyers, the doctors, the executives, Ryan would get this look in his eyes like he was measuring me against them and finding me lacking. I started noticing he was spending more time at networking events, business dinners, conferences, building connections, he called it, making moves for our future. When I'd asked to come along, he'd always have a reason why it wasn't appropriate. "It's just business people, Ash. You'd be bored. It's not really your crowd. Maybe next time." The night everything fell apart was supposed to be special. We were having dinner at this expensive restaurant downtown, the kind of place Ryan loved because it made him feel important. I thought we were celebrating our 4-year anniversary. Instead, Ryan had other plans. "Ashley," he said, setting down his wine glass with that serious expression I'd learned to dread, "we need to talk about our future." "Okay," I said, smiling because I still thought this was leading somewhere good. "What about our future?" Ryan looked around the restaurant, then back at me, and said words that I'll never forget. "I don't think we're heading in the same direction anymore. I've been thinking about what I want in a wife, and honestly, you're just not at the level I need to be at." I stared at him, not understanding. "What level?" "Success level, ambition level. I need someone who matches my drive, my earning potential, someone who can network with clients, handle business dinners, fit into my professional world." He paused, like he was choosing his words carefully. "You're a great person, Ash, but teaching elementary school, it's just not gonna cut it for where I'm going in life." The words hit me like a physical blow. 4 years together, and suddenly I wasn't good enough to be his wife? "Are you breaking up with me?" I asked. "He's being realistic about our compatibility," he said, as if this was some kind of business meeting. "I've met someone who was more suitable. Her name is Victoria. She's a corporate lawyer, comes from a prominent family. She understands the world I'm trying to build." I sat there in that expensive restaurant, wearing the engagement ring he'd given me 2 years earlier, listening to the man I loved tell me I wasn't successful enough to marry.
The humiliation was overwhelming, but underneath it was something else, a cold, clear anger. "So you're leaving me for someone more successful?" "I'm choosing a partner who can help me reach my goals," Ryan corrected, as if that made it sound better. "You have to understand, Ashley. In my business, image matters. The right wife opens doors."
I took off my engagement ring right there at the table and placed it next to his wine glass. "Well then, I guess you've made your choice." Ryan seemed surprised by how calmly I was taking this. Maybe he expected me to cry, to beg, to fight for him. Instead, I stood up, grabbed my purse, and said, "Good luck with Victoria and your image." The next few weeks were rough, I won't lie. I called in sick to work for 3 days and stayed in my apartment crying and eating ice cream directly from the container. My friends rallied around me, telling me Ryan was an idiot and that I was better off without him. But the worst part wasn't just losing him. It was feeling like maybe he was right. Maybe I wasn't successful enough. Maybe I was just a simple elementary school teacher who wasn't good enough for someone with bigger ambitions. But then, something interesting happened. 2 weeks after the breakup, I got a call that changed everything. It was from my financial advisor, Marcus Webb, and he was calling about some investments I'd been making for the past 5 years. Now, here's something Ryan never knew about me, something I'd kept private because I'd learned early in life that money changes how people see you. When my grandfather passed away when I was 30, he left me a modest inheritance, about $50,000. Instead of spending it on vacations or shopping, I decided to invest it. I'd always been good with numbers, even though I chose teaching over finance. I started small, buying rental properties in up-and-coming neighborhoods, flipping houses on weekends, investing in real estate development projects. I reinvested every dollar I made, living off my teacher's salary, while building a portfolio that grew bigger every year. Marcus was calling because one of my major investments, a commercial development project I'd put money into 3 years earlier, had just been sold. My share of the profit was substantial, more than substantial, actually. "Ashley," Marcus said over the phone, "your real estate portfolio is now worth approximately $6.8 million. I had to ask him to repeat that number because I thought I'd misheard. $6.8 million? While Ryan was breaking up with me for not being successful enough, I was sitting on a fortune he never knew existed. The irony was almost laughable. Here I was, mourning the loss of a man who thought I wasn't successful enough when I'd quietly built more wealth in 5 years than he'd probably see in his entire career. But here's the thing. I'd kept this secret because I wanted to be loved for who I was, not what I had. I'd seen too many relationships destroyed by money, too many people who changed when they found out someone had wealth. I wanted Ryan to love Ashley, the teacher, not Ashley, the millionaire. And now I realized that his inability to see my worth had nothing to do with money. It had to do with respect. He'd never valued what I did, never appreciated my intelligence, never saw me as an equal partner. Money wouldn't have fixed that. About a month after our breakup, I started hearing through mutual friends that Ryan's relationship with Victoria wasn't going as smoothly as he hoped. Apparently, dating a high-powered lawyer came with its own challenges. She had less time for him than I ever did. She was more demanding, more critical, less willing to accommodate his schedule and his needs. Then 2 months after he told me I wasn't successful enough, Ryan called me. "Ashley," he said, and I could hear something different in his voice. Regret, maybe, or desperation. "I think I made a mistake." "Did you?" I asked calmly. "Victoria and it's not working out. She's too career-focused,
too cold. I miss what we had. I miss you. I almost laughed. What exactly do you miss, Ryan? The woman who wasn't successful enough? I was wrong about that, he said quickly. I realize now that success isn't just about money or status. You have qualities that matter more.
This conversation was happening just as I'd closed on my latest investment property, a beautiful Victorian house that I'd bought, renovated, and was about to flip for a 200% profit. I was sitting in my car outside that house, looking at something I'd built with my own intelligence and hard work, listening to the man who told me I wasn't ambitious enough try to win me back. Ryan, I said, can I tell you a secret? Of course, he said eagerly, probably thinking I was about to forgive him. Remember when you said I wasn't successful enough to be your wife? Ashley, I was wrong about that. You were wrong, I interrupted, but not in the way you think. You were wrong because you never bothered to find out who I really was. I could hear him breathing on the other end of the line, waiting. While you were building your image and networking for your career, I was building something real. For the past 5 years, I've been investing in real estate. My portfolio is worth nearly $7 million. The silence that followed was deafening. What? He finally whispered. I'm not just successful, Ryan. I'm independently wealthy. I could retire tomorrow and live comfortably for the rest of my life. But I choose to teach because I love it, because it matters, because making a difference in children's lives is more important to me than making money. I could practically hear his mind racing, trying to process this information. The funny thing is, I continued, if you had ever truly valued me, if you had seen me as an equal partner instead of someone who wasn't good enough for your ambitions, I might have shared this with you eventually. We could have built something amazing together. Ashley, I had no idea. That's exactly my point. You had no idea because you never took the time to really know me. You were so busy judging me by your shallow standards that you missed who I actually was. Ryan started talking faster, trying to convince me that we could work things out, that he understood now, that money didn't matter to him. But I wasn't listening anymore because I'd already realized something important. His betrayal had been the best thing that could have happened to me. If Ryan had never left me, I might have spent my whole life trying to be enough for someone who would never see my worth. Instead, his rejection forced me to recognize my own value. Ryan, I said, cutting off his desperate rambling, I need you to understand something. Even if I had no money, even if I was just a simple teacher with nothing to my name, I would still be too good for you. Because I'm someone who values loyalty, honesty, and seeing the best in people. And you're someone who judges worth by bank accounts and social status. 6 months later, my life looked completely different. I'd used some of my profits to start an educational foundation that provided resources for underprivileged schools. I'd traveled to Europe, something I'd always wanted to do but never felt I could afford. And I'd started dating someone new, a fellow teacher who thought my job was the most important work in the world, who knew about my investments but loved me for my heart, not my bank account. Ryan, well, let's just say his relationship with Victoria ended about as successfully as you'd expect from something built on shallow foundations. I heard through friends that he'd tried dating several other successful women, but kept comparing them to what we had together. The beautiful thing about betrayal is that sometimes it's exactly what you need to discover your own strength. If Ryan had never told me I wasn't good enough, I might never have realized how good I actually was. Sometimes the best revenge isn't getting back at someone who hurt you. Sometimes it's building a life so beautiful, so fulfilling that you forget why you were angry in the first place. Have you ever had someone underestimate your worth only to later regret their assumptions? What would you have done in Ashley's situation? Drop your thoughts in the comments below, and don't forget to like this video and subscribe to Hidden Hearth for more stories about hidden success, unexpected revenge, and the satisfaction of proving doubters wrong.